Let me hit you with something straight. If you don't evolve in this game, you stay stuck. Simple as that. You stay the same trader, same fears, same reactions, same stupid habits you keep promising you'll fix tomorrow. And that's what this whole episode is about. Because every trader thinks evolution is optional. It's not. It's survival. It's the only reason guys like me lasted 40 years, while thousands, no exaggeration, thousands dropped out and never returned. But before we get into the real meat, let me ask you something that probably hits too close. Why do you feel confident outside the market, but fall apart the moment you're in a trade? Why does a tiny pullback feel like an attack on your identity? Why do you promise discipline, yet break your rules the second pressure appears? Why do you hold a losing trade like it's family, but cut a winning one like it stole from you? Why are your emotions louder than your logic, even when you know better? Seriously, why does the market expose you like this? Why does it drag your weaknesses into the light every single day? Why does it show you the truth about yourself, a truth you keep running from? And here's the real punch. If you don't evolve, if you don't face these questions head on, you stay a slave to fear, a slave to greed, a slave to every emotion that jumps out of you, faster than your brain can think. But I'll tell you this, by the time you finish this episode, you will understand exactly how traders evolve, what changes inside them, what breaks, what rebuilds, and why the ones who make it, the ones who turn deadly consistent, all go through the same invisible transformation. You'll get the solutions, real ones, not guru nonsense, not motivational sugar, actual mental shifts that turn you from a reactive trader into a controlled, calculated decision maker who can handle this game like a businessman, not a boy. This is the evolution, and by the end, you'll know whether you're ready for it or whether you'll stay stuck exactly where you've always been. The first stage of evolution, when the market exposes the child in you. You ever notice the market has a way of making you feel small? I don't mean financially, I mean mentally, emotionally, almost childish. And that's exactly where the evolution starts. Because before you grow into a consistent trader, the market forces you to meet the version of yourself that you've been avoiding for years. That impatient kid inside you, the one who wants everything fast, the one who fears missing out, the one who thinks a chart owes him something just because he showed up today. And here's the hook. Most traders never even realize that the first stage of evolution isn't learning strategy. It's realizing you're still trading with the emotional maturity of a teenager. Painful sentence, I know, but completely true. Let me ask you something raw. Don't dodge it, don't sugarcoat it, just answer it honestly in your mind. Why do you react to losses like someone stole your lunch money? Why do you chase price like a kid chasing a ball, even though you promised yourself you'd wait? Why does boredom push you into trades like a child who can't sit still for 5 minutes? Why do you demand certainty in a game that never offered it? Why do you think one winning trade will fix months of emotional chaos? These are not adult behaviors. These are not professional behaviors. These are not business behaviors. Yet this is how 99% of traders act every single day. And the market? It sees it. It exposes it. It punishes it. Not because the market is cruel, but because the market responds only to emotional maturity. Not effort, not hope, not excitement. Maturity, control, stillness. That's the first stage of evolution. Accepting that the market isn't the problem. Your undeveloped inner trader is. In my 40 years, I've watched thousands of traders come and go, and I'll tell you something that might shock you. The ones who eventually became killers all had the same moment of realization. They realized the market wasn't judging their strategy, it was judging their self-control. See, a grown trader, a real trader, acts with intention, not reaction, not impulses, not fear, not excitement. He doesn't chase the market. He doesn't beg the market. He doesn't argue with the market. He stands still and waits for the trade to make sense. Not emotionally, but logically, structurally, mathematically. The immature trader wants action. The evolved trader wants clarity. That's the difference. That's the shift. That's the beginning. The evolution starts when you stop treating trading like a toy and start treating it like a weapon, a tool that requires discipline, respect, and a mindset that's stable under pressure. Once you accept that the child inside you is driving your trades, you finally gain the power to take the wheel. And that's when everything changes. Because evolution isn't something the market hands you. It's something you earn by outgrowing the weakest version of yourself. The stage where you realize the enemy isn't the market, it's you. You ever stare at a chart and feel this strange tension in your chest, like something inside you is pulling the trigger before your brain even approves it? That moment, that tiny reckless spark, is exactly where most traders destroy themselves. And here's the hook that should shake you a little. You're not losing because the market is tricky. You're losing because you still haven't evolved past the version of yourself that loves sabotaging your own progress. Sounds harsh, but every great trader I've seen, every single one, had to face this truth. Let's rip the bandage off. You can't evolve if you keep lying to yourself. So answer these honestly, because they expose the second stage of evolution. Why do you enter trades you already know are low quality, hoping they magically turn into something they're not? Why do you ignore the stop loss you set with a clear head the moment your emotions start screaming? Why do you revenge trade even though you swore last week that you'd never do it again? Why do you add size to a losing trade as if doubling down on a mistake somehow fixes it? Why do you keep thinking this time will be different when your behavior hasn't changed one bit? These questions hurt, but they're the doorway, because every trader has a self-destructive switch inside them. Some flip it quietly, some flip it loudly, but they all flip it until they evolve past this stage. And if you don't evolve, you repeat the same mistakes for years and call it bad luck. You blame the broker, you blame the news, you blame the spread, you blame everything except the person actually pressing the buttons. There comes a point, a very uncomfortable, very private point, where a trader realizes something brutal. The market cannot hurt you unless you help it. Think about that. Sit with it. Because the second stage of evolution isn't about mastering entries or finding a perfect system. It's about cutting the power source that fuels your worst decisions. You know what I discovered after 40 years? Every losing trader has the same problem. They trust their emotions more than their rules. They trust impulse more than logic. They trust how it feels more than what makes sense. That's why the evolution at this stage isn't about being smarter. It's about stopping the sabotage. How? By recognizing the exact moment your brain switches from execution to emotion. That split-second shift, where logic steps aside and your fear or ego takes the wheel. The day I became consistent was the day I learned to freeze myself at that moment, to pause, to interrupt the sabotage before it even started. Because yes, you can evolve past this stage. You can learn to catch yourself before you drown yourself. And once you master that, you become dangerous. Not because you know more, but because you finally stopped working against yourself. That's evolution, real evolution, the kind that reshapes your entire trading identity. The stage where you stop needing the market to approve you. You ever reach a point where a trade feels personal, like the market is judging your intelligence, your worth, your whole identity? That's the stage where most traders get stuck for life, because they don't realize this simple, brutal truth. Until you stop tying your self-worth to your results, you will never evolve past emotional slavery. This is the stage where the market teaches you something far more important than strategy. It teaches you detachment, real detachment, the kind that makes you dangerous in the right way. But before detachment comes clarity, and before clarity comes the painful questions. Let me ask you the questions that haunt traders in this stage. The questions that expose the emotional dependency you pretend you don't have. Why does a winning trade make you feel like a king, but a losing trade makes you question your entire life? Why do you change your plan after a loss, as if one outcome suddenly defines your future? Why does your mood swing like a broken elevator just because a candle moved the wrong way? Why do you scroll your history after every session, not to learn, but to judge yourself? Why do you keep expecting the market to validate your existence when the market doesn't even know you're alive? These questions cut deep because they reveal the emotional addiction traders live with. And addiction is exactly the right word. You're addicted to outcomes. High when you win, depressed when you lose, chasing the next dopamine spike, running from the next emotional crash. It's not trading anymore. It's emotional gambling dressed in chart patterns. And if you don't evolve out of this stage, you never get control. You never get consistency. You never get freedom, because your results own you instead of you owning your behavior. Here's the truth I learned after decades watching traders burn out. The moment a trader stops needing the market finally becomes profitable for him. It sounds backwards, but it's the most accurate statement in this entire script. You only evolve when you stop tying your identity to your trades. When a losing trade becomes information, not a personal insult. When a winning trade becomes a data point, not an ego boost. You evolve when the outcome stops shifting your mood, your confidence, your self-belief. I remember meeting a trader. Quiet guy, barely talked, but one of the most consistent I'd ever seen. I asked him once, "How do you stay so calm after a loss?" He just shrugged and said, "I don't expect the market to care about me." That line hit me like a truck, because he wasn't detached from effort. He was detached from expectation. He didn't kill his ambition, he killed his attachment. That's the difference. Ambition drives you. Attachment destroys you. When I finally learned that, when I finally stopped needing a trade to go my way, my entire performance stabilized. I stopped forcing trades. I stopped revenge trading. I stopped panicking when a setup took its sweet time. I stopped chasing wins like they were oxygen. Because I didn't need the market anymore, I only needed myself, my rules, my structure, my clarity. That's when the evolution became real, when the market no longer controlled my emotions, and I finally started controlling my decisions. This is the stage where traders transform from emotional creatures into strategic thinkers, from reactive to deliberate, from fragile to unshakable. This is the stage that decides your trading future. Miss it, and you stay stuck forever. Master it, and the market finally respects you. The stage where evolution becomes physical, mastering the space between impulse and action. You ever notice how your finger moves faster than your brain in trading? Like there's this tiny invisible moment, a split-second gap where your body reacts before your thinking even shows up. That moment, that microsecond of impulse, is where most traders destroy their entire week, and it happens so fast, so quietly, that you don't even realize you've made a mistake until the chart smacks you across the face. But here's the hook you need to hear. Your entire evolution as a trader depends on what you do in that tiny space between wanting to act and actually acting. If you don't control that space, you never break free from emotional slavery. If you master that space, you become unstoppable. Let's dig into the real internal problems. These aren't chart issues. These are nervous system issues. Human issues. The things you don't admit out loud. Why do you enter trades instantly when you feel a sudden rush, but later pretend you saw something in the chart? Why does your hand click buy or sell, even though your mind is whispering, "This isn't it"? Why do you panic exit winners, not because the setup changed, but because your heartbeat did? Why do you revenge trade, not out of strategy, but out of adrenaline? Yet your actions show zero control over impulse. These questions are brutal because they expose the truth. Most traders think they have a strategy problem, but really, they have a reaction problem. The chart isn't beating them. Their impulses are. Their nervous system is. Their body is making decisions. Their mind didn't approve. That's the prison. That's the cage. And until you evolve past this stage, you'll always be a slave to your emotions, even if your strategy is good. Here's what I learned after decades of sitting behind screens, watching clients implode, watching professionals succeed, and surviving my own emotional disasters. Trading success isn't built on what you do. It's built on what you stop yourself from doing. That tiny gap, that half-second pause between impulse and action, is where discipline actually lives. It's not in your rules. It's not in your journal. It's not in your morning routine. It's in the gap, the pause, the space where evolution happens. I train myself to extend that gap, to stretch it, to force time to slow down, just long enough for logic to punch emotion in the mouth. How? By developing a habit so simple, but so powerful, that it rewired my entire approach. Before clicking anything, I ask myself one question: is this decision coming from clarity or craving? That question saved me. It forced me to look at my behavior, not the chart. It stopped dozens of bad trades before they ever existed. This is what evolved traders do. They don't react, they respond. They don't jump, they breathe. They don't trade the feeling, they trade the plan. And once you master this, trading becomes calmer, cleaner, sharper, boring in the best way. Because the real killers in this industry, the ones who stay consistent for decades, aren't fast traders, they're controlled traders. They let the impulse pass through them without obeying it. They let emotion scream without giving it permission to act. They use stillness like a weapon. When you can hold that space, that sacred half-second, you stop being a slave and start being a master. That's the evolution. Not strategy, not indicators, not setups. Self-control at a microscopic level. Master it, and the market stops eating you alive. The stage where you build emotional armor, thicker than any drawdown. You ever notice how some traders take a loss and they break instantly? But others, the rare ones, can take a hit so hard it should wipe them out emotionally, yet they sit there like nothing even happened. You think that's talent, luck, some magical mindset they were born with? No, that's evolution, that's armor. That's the stage where a trader stops being a fragile creature and becomes someone the market can't emotionally control anymore. And here's the hook. Most traders never get here. They stay soft, thin-skinned, easily rattled. One red candle, and they fall apart like wet paper. But if you ever want real consistency, you have to evolve beyond emotional fragility, because the market hits everyone, but not everyone cracks. Let's expose the emotional leaks you pretend don't exist. Why does one losing trade ruin your entire day as if it erased your intelligence? Why does a small drawdown feel like a personal insult instead of a normal part of the business? Why do you panic the moment the market moves against you, even when nothing in the setup has actually changed? Why do you celebrate winners too early, then freeze when price pulls back slightly? Why do you take every fluctuation personally, as if the market is attacking you, not just moving like it always does? These questions reveal a hard truth. You're not losing because of analysis. You're losing because you still don't have emotional armor. The market isn't beating your strategy. It's beating your tolerance, your resilience, your ability to stay calm in chaos. If your emotions are weak, your entire trading career sits on a cracked foundation. One shock, and everything collapses. There was a moment in my own career, far into it, embarrassingly far, where I realized something life-changing. The market isn't supposed to feel comfortable. It's supposed to test you every single day. Once I accepted that, my emotional world shifted. I stopped wishing for easy days. I stopped begging for smooth sessions. I stopped hoping for clean moves, because that's not what professional trading is. Professional trading is learning to stay stable when the chart wants to pull your emotions in 10 directions at once. You know what emotional armor looks like? I'll tell you. It's the ability to take a loss without losing your mind. It's staying calm when price wicks violently and everyone else is panicking. It's watching a position go slightly into drawdown and not immediately assuming the universe hates you. It's seeing volatility and thinking, interesting, instead of, oh no, please stop, please behave. Armor isn't built in wins. Armor is built in discomfort, in turbulence, in the moments where your old self would have folded like a cheap tent. I trained myself to handle emotional pain the way a boxer trains to take punches, not to enjoy them, but to survive them, to stay functional, to stay calm, to stay smart. Little by little, my reactions dulled, my panic softened, my confidence thickened. My brain stopped seeing danger in every red candle and started seeing data. That's the evolution. When emotions stop controlling your decisions and start becoming background noise. When you stop reacting and start observing. When your mind becomes heavier than your fear, that's emotional armor. And once it's built, once you evolve into that version of a trader, drawdowns don't scare you anymore. Volatility doesn't shake you. Losing streaks don't define you. You become anchored, grounded, unmoved. And that's when the market finally realizes you're not prey anymore. You're not fragile. You're not breakable. You're a different creature entirely. A trader who can't be emotionally controlled. A trader with armor. The stage where you finally stop thinking like a gambler and start thinking like a builder. You ever notice how the market pushes you to think in minutes, while success requires you to think in years? That contradiction right there, that mental tug of war, is the stage where most traders fail their evolution. Because let me tell you something that hits hard. If you keep thinking short-term in a long-term profession, you will never escape emotional slavery. This is the stage where traders either mature or get eaten alive, where they stop acting like gamblers chasing moments and start acting like builders creating a future. And here's the hook. You can't evolve until you shift the time frame inside your own mind. The candles won't do it for you. Your P&L won't do it for you. Your wins won't do it either. Only you can make that shift. But before it happens, you must confront the questions you've been ducking for years. These questions aren't pretty, but if you don't answer them honestly, you will stay trapped in the same cycle forever. Why do you panic over one losing day as if it defines your entire year? Why do you let one good trade fill your ego as if success is measured in minutes? Why do you change strategies after 3 bad trades when you know deep down you never gave anything real time to work? Why do you chase fast money, knowing fast money creates fast destruction? Why do you let short-term fluctuations control a career you claim to want for the long term? These questions expose the truth. You can't evolve while your mind is stuck in the same time frame as your emotions. The market forces short-term movement. Your job is to force long-term thinking. But right now, your emotions are thinking faster than your logic. Your impulses are thinking smaller than your goals. Your decisions are thinking weaker than your potential. That's the trap, and most traders never escape it. Here's what I discovered after watching traders burn their futures, one tiny decision at a time. Long-term thinkers win in a short-term market because they refuse to let temporary pain dictate permanent behavior. That's the entire secret, the whole shift, the core of evolution. Let me explain it in simple terms. A gambler thinks, how much can I make today? A builder thinks, how strong can I become this year? See the difference. One is emotional. One is strategic. One chases noise. One chases mastery. One reacts to every candle. One reacts to nothing. That doesn't change the bigger picture. When I finally made this shift, everything about my trading changed shape. I stopped caring about daily wins. I stopped panicking over daily losses. I stopped obsessing over every little move. I started focusing on the long arc, the consistency curve, the risk curve, the behavioral curve, because I realized something that took me far too long to understand. Short-term emotions destroy long-term careers, but long-term thinking makes short-term emotions powerless. Once that clicked, my reaction slowed, my judgment sharpened, My fear softened, my discipline thickened. I wasn't trying to win the day anymore. I was trying to win the career. And that shift, that mental evolution, is what separates the traders who survive from the traders the market spits out without mercy. The goal stopped being, did I make money today? And became, did I behave like the trader I want to be a year from now? That's when everything snapped into place. That's when consistency became possible. That's when I stopped being a slave to the emotions of the moment. When you think long term, your emotions lose their weapon. Your losses lose their sting. Your wins lose their pressure. Your identity stops moving with every candle. That's evolution, mental evolution, the evolution that decides your entire future in this business. The stage where hope dies and professionalism is finally born. You ever notice how hope feels amazing, right up until the moment it destroys you? That's the stage traders hate talking about, the turning point. The point where evolution demands something brutal from you. You must kill hope, or hope will kill your entire trading career. Sounds dramatic, right? But it's the truth. And every successful trader, every real one I've known over 40 years, had to go through this exact transformation. Hope is emotional fuel. Professionals run on evidence. And until you make that shift, you stay trapped inside the slow torture chamber that is emotional trading. Let's dig into it. You ready for the real questions? The ones that expose why your evolution keeps stalling? Because hope is sneaky. It doesn't yell, it whispers. And those whispers sound innocent until they blow up your entire plan. Why do you stay in losing trades just a little longer, waiting for a miracle you know isn't coming? Why do you hold on to hope but let go of discipline the second pressure appears? Why do you keep telling yourself this trade might still turn around when all the evidence screams the opposite? Why do you build fantasies in your mind while ignoring facts right in front of your eyes? Why does hope feel safer than honesty, even though honesty would save your account and hope keeps killing it? These questions cut deep because hope is the most dangerous emotion in trading. Fear makes you exit. Greed makes you enter. But hope makes you blind. It makes you negotiate with the market as if the market cares about your emotional needs. It doesn't. It never has. It never will. And if you don't evolve past hope, you stay soft. You stay emotional. You stay exactly where you've always been, reactive, anxious, and stuck. Let me tell you something that took me years, honestly, embarrassingly many years to understand. Hope is for people who don't have rules. Evidence is for people who do. The moment I switched from emotional hoping to evidence-driven execution, my entire trading identity flipped. I stopped asking, please come back, and started asking, what does the data say? I stopped saying, this trade might save my day, and started saying, this decision must protect my year. I stopped begging the market to behave and started behaving myself. This is what evolution looks like. You stop waiting. You start evaluating. You stop hoping. You start measuring. You stop feeling. You start verifying. The day I finally accepted this, I remember looking at my chart and thinking, damn, I've been making decisions based on emotion for years and calling it intuition. No. Intuition is the highest level of experience. Hope is the lowest level of desperation. And once you separate the two, your trading becomes lethal in the right way. Let me give you the real evolutionary shift. Professionals enter when evidence appears. Amateurs enter when emotions appear. Professionals exit based on logic. Amateurs exit based on panic. Professionals follow proof. Amateurs follow feelings. When you evolve into evidence-first trading, your whole world stabilizes. Your entries slow down. Your exits become predictable. Your confidence becomes grounded. Your stress disappears. Your account curve smooths out. Because evidence is calm. Evidence is objective. Evidence doesn't argue. Evidence doesn't beg. Evidence doesn't care about your hopes. And that's exactly why it works. When you replace hope with evidence, you finally evolve into the version of a trader that can actually survive in this profession. Not lucky, not emotional, not frantic, just controlled, measured, consistent. That's the stage where professionalism is born. And once you reach it, you never go back. The stage where you finally learn that complexity is just fear in disguise. You ever notice how the deeper you go into trading, the more complicated your charts magically become? Indicators everywhere, lines everywhere, alerts buzzing like a broken alarm clock. Your screen starts looking like a NASA dashboard, and yet your results don't get any better. That's the moment evolution punches you in the ribs. Because here's the uncomfortable hook most traders never want to hear. You didn't add complexity because it made you better. You added complexity because you were scared. Scared of missing moves, scared of being wrong, scared of trusting yourself, scared of keeping things simple, because simple means you're responsible. And this is the stage where traders either break the illusion or drown in it. Let's peel this open. These questions might sting, but evolution requires honesty. Why do you keep adding indicators, hoping one of them will magically remove uncertainty for you? Why does a clean chart make you anxious, but a cluttered chart makes you feel safer? Why do you trust tools more than your own eyes, even though half those tools contradict each other? Why do you have 5 reasons to enter a trade, but 0 reasons to walk away from a bad one? Why do you chase the illusion of perfect analysis instead of the reality of consistent simplicity? These are not strategy issues. These are psychological issues, dressed up as technical issues. Traders don't complicate charts because it helps them win. They complicate charts because they don't trust themselves to lose well. They think complexity will protect them from pain, from uncertainty, from taking responsibility. But the truth is brutal. The more complicated your system is, the easier it becomes for your emotions to hijack it. Complexity gives emotions places to hide. It gives you excuses. It gives you reasons to break rules. It gives you the illusion of control while actually taking control from you. And until you evolve past this stage, you will always be a prisoner of your own overthinking. Let me tell you the truth. I learned after 4 decades, a truth that every high-level trader eventually discovers. Simplicity is not a lack of intelligence. Simplicity is the proof of mastery. Every successful trader I've ever met, and I mean the real ones, the ones who survived entire market cycles, all had something in common. Their charts were simple. Their decisions were simple. Their processes were simple. Their minds were simple. Not simple as in dumb, simple as in refined, distilled, pure. Because once you evolve far enough, you realize complexity doesn't add confidence. It adds noise. Complexity doesn't reduce risk. It hides it. Complexity doesn't improve performance. It distracts from performance. When I finally stripped everything down, when I removed the clutter, the noise, the unnecessary tools, the crutches, the emotional band-aids, my trading became something entirely different. Clearer, calmer, sharper, stronger. Because here's the core of this evolution stage. You stop trying to control the market, and you start controlling your interpretation of it. That's the shift, the breakthrough, the moment where everything starts clicking. When simplicity becomes your edge, you stop second-guessing yourself. You stop fighting your system. You stop chasing setups that don't matter. You stop abandoning your structure after 2 losses. You stop being a reactive trader and start being an intentional one. And once that happens, your emotions lose their playground, because emotions thrive in chaos, and complexity is chaos. But simplicity is discipline. Simplicity is control. Simplicity is maturity. This is the stage where you evolve from trying to find the perfect setup to executing the same clean process over and over, like a craftsman who no longer doubts his hands. And that's when your results finally start rising in a straight line, because your decisions stop bouncing like a pinball. Simplicity is the professional evolution most traders never reach because they're too addicted to the comfort of confusion. But once you reach it, you'll never go back, because clarity becomes addictive in the best way. The final stage, when you become the trader your old self could never handle being. You ever wake up one day and realize you're not fighting the same battles anymore. Not because the market changed, but because you did. That's the final evolution, the stage where you stop trying to survive trading and finally start owning it. And here's the hook. Most traders never make it here. Not because they're stupid, not because they lack skill, but because this last transformation requires something most people avoid their entire lives. You must become someone your old emotional self would fear. Not softer, not more positive, not more hyped, but colder, clearer, sharper, less reactive, more deliberate, more disciplined than you ever believed you could be. This is the stage where your evolution becomes permanent, where you break the psychological chains for good. Listen carefully now, because these are the last questions evolution will ever ask you. If you answer them honestly, you'll know exactly why your trading life changes from this page onward. Why do you still treat trading like a battle with the market, when the only real battle is the one between your old self and your evolved self? Why do you keep trying to feel ready when readiness is created by action, not emotion? Why do you think consistency comes from perfect predictions instead of perfect behavior? Why do you expect success to show up before you show the discipline that deserves it? Why do you cling to your old identity, the emotional, impulsive, fear-driven version of you, when that version never survived this game for even a month? These questions expose one last truth. You cannot become the trader you want while protecting the trader you were. Evolution demands sacrifice, and the sacrifice is the old you. Let me tell you something I learned after 4 decades, something that took me years of self-destruction, silent nights, and painful honesty to finally understand. Trading doesn't reward the smartest person. It rewards the most evolved person, the person who can withstand discomfort, who can execute without attention, who can control the moment before the chaos, who can stay calm when others panic, who can accept uncertainty without losing clarity. That's the final version of you. Not the emotional version, not the overconfident version, not the fragile version, not the gambler, not the overthinker, the evolved version, the version that does not need hope, does not need excitement, does not need external validation, does not need permission. A version that replaces fear with logic, impulses with structure, noise with simplicity, chaos with clarity. That version is not born from winning streaks. That version is forged from intentional evolution. You've been shown every stage. The child inside you, the self-sabotaging instinct, the need for validation, the impulse problem, the emotional fragility, the time frame shift, the death of hope, the end of complexity. And now here, the final shift, becoming the trader who acts from identity, not emotion. That's the real solution. That's the hidden answer behind all consistency. That's the truth gurus never say, because it requires actual transformation, not shortcuts. Once you evolve, really evolve, you stop being controlled by the market and start controlling your responses to it. You stop looking for perfect trades and start making perfect decisions. You stop chasing outcomes and start executing processes. You stop reacting and start commanding. And that's when consistency arrives. Not as a miracle, not as luck, not as some magical turning point, but as the final result of every psychological shift you've been guided through in this video. You are no longer a slave to emotions. You are no longer a victim of impulses. You are no longer dragged around by fear, hope, or noise. You are the evolved trader, the version that survives, the version that wins, the version that earns respect from a market that respects almost no one. This is the end of the evolution and the beginning of the career you were actually meant to have. The solution wasn't new strategies. It was a new self,